Hello, I'm P.I.E. That's short for the Plan to Improve the Economy, or my fancy way of saying, let's make life in the good old USA better for the hard-working people who live here. Yes, I'm talking about you.
This was an ad I got in about September 2020, advertising the Plan to Improve the Economy. Now, with most normal ads, you should just forget about it a few hours later, but something about this grabbed me. Was it the uncanny voiceover? Was it the strange stilted animation? Was it the vague social good? Was it the weirdly evasive replies to the content this guy made? I don't know, but this has nagged at me for long enough, so let's talk about it. To start, let's look at the video that was actively advertised and promoted that got me to make this video in the first place. P.I.E. Plan to improve the economy brings in revenue from a new source and that allows many things. There's a lot of deeply creepy things about this video, but first off, it's pretty apparent that this is a political thing, which is fine. And he appeals to the ever-nebulous middle class, making clear he wants somebody to vote. He also appeals to the people who don't contribute. Oh, like rich people?
And no, I'm not talking about the rich.
Oh. No, instead he talks about people who make their money
Under the table.
and how they can contribute to the economy. Now, this is kind of a terrible ad. It just tells you about problems and expects you to figure out the rest. I gotta say though, it did work, and this video has far more comments than other ads I've seen. Okay, having watched all of them, here's what he plans to do. Cut the payroll tax entirely and replace it with an additional 11% sales tax, which will accordingly allow greater funding to Social Security and welfare to allow it to persist long enough to allow the older generation to stop using it, stopping a looming crisis. Why did I write such a long sentence? Now, there are a few problems, which the plan does kind of account for, but first off, let's talk about the largest part of the plan, eliminating the payroll tax and introducing a federal sales tax. Payroll taxes are essentially corporate employee taxes, where the employer gives a certain percentage, around 15 to 20% of all the money they pay to their employees, to the government. This obviously fluctuates with the economic prosperity. So, as more people lose their jobs, the government gets less money, which is very much not a good thing when the economy gets bad. P.I.E.'s MO is essentially the following. Since unemployed people still spend money, we should tax that and use the money gained from that tax to reverse the payroll tax, which will put more money into the middle class. His claim is that this federal sales tax on everything but housing will allow the federal government to tap into the dark economy, because criminals have to eat too. This will, according to him, and we'll get to that, generate over $900 billion in additional tax revenue, which will be used to fund tax cuts such as the payroll tax, as well as funding Social Security and welfare, with a bit left over to please the ever-terrifying debt clock, which is all well and good, and will leave the middle class with a tax cut totaling 22%, which will be very nice for those people. However, he doesn't provide any sources for his claims, and when I asked him for sources, he linked me to a comment where he said, "Someone requested sources. I'll provide process since sources won't be much help by themselves. 1. Data from the IRS SOI database was used to get many different pieces of information by income grouping, latest year available, 2018. 2. Total payroll tax actuals for 2020 from government budgets and then estimated breakdown by income grouping can easily be made. 3. Data for modified adjust gross income, MAGI, can also be obtained from the IRS SOI database by income grouping. This is AGI plus untaxed items. 4. The MAGI can be used to estimate how much households at various income levels spend on non-housing purchases to determine the federal sales taxes at 11% of those purchases. 5. Social Security and welfare benefit information is available from various government databases. All of the information needs to be adjusted as necessary to bring it to the same normal year for accurate comparisons. The data was reviewed by a well-known tax expert, and he indicated that the plan's numbers were reasonable. Which did not answer my question. The problem with this plan is that it doesn't fix the main problem. That being that the richest 1% of the 1% are hoarding massive amounts of money. $50 trillion have been siphoned out of the lower 90% of the population to the top 1% of the population over the last 30 years. Not to mention the fact that they pay less than 1% tax for almost everything due to super favorable loans. This right here is why the economy is doing so badly. Billionaires are vacuuming up huge portions of the GDP into their own personal wealth. I can see why an economist would come up with a plan like this, but until this is fixed, I don't see anything getting better for the average person, especially considering that the median income for the US is lower than his mark for the middle class. P.I.E. has no increase to the minimum wage at all, which is bad. Really bad. And the working class, which the middle class is a part of, contributes far more to the society compared to the owner class, who, even these videos admit, contribute jack! Yet, it just misses the mark. I don't even think wages would go up, because what's preventing an employer from just quietly cutting their employees' pay and taking what they once paid in payroll taxes and giving it to their executives? Wait, that completely ruins the plan. Wages wouldn't increase, and wealth inequality would increase even faster. That means the elite's power would only grow as the rest of the world wasted away. Wait a second! That's not a pie! Rupert Murdoch!
Yes, indeed, it was I. You have found out my devious scheme, and now you must die.
Wait! This ketchup's gonna take a week to clean up. That dickhead.